Father Fabio, why are these times of so many insecurities? Because we suffer so much these days with our insecurities in relationships, friendships, dating, weddings anyway. We are all immersed in a large network where people are discarded so easily. And truth, by the way, I've been like this. It is a characteristic of postmodernity. I'll talk a little bit of philosophy here, just for us to introduce. You know that in the history of philosophy, we always had great questions that guide the philosophers. For example, the first phase of philosophy in the world was mythology. So everyone wanted to explain the origin of the universe. So a lot of mythical creation. Philosophy was born of mythology. Soon after, we have that phase when philosophers were concerned with physical issues, because they wanted to explain the origin of the universe. The same today are wanting to simulate Big Bang to find out the origin of the universe. Then the philosophers were concerned, for example, everything was born of the water. Everything was born from the earth. Everything was born from the fire. The question was physical, and all the philosophy of that time revolved around the same goal. Then comes the Middle Ages. The sacred takes over the reflection. All of that is reflected is around God. All that is reflected is around the sacred. Philosophy is all the time revolving around religious issues, for in the modern age it is reason. The big question that motivated philosophy in the modern age was the reason, the intellectuality, knowledge, people. One of the characteristics of postmodernity, which is precisely the time after modernity, is precisely not having an unusual factor for philosophical reflection. In other times, it was as if we had a round table where everyone sits to talk. So the table is this one. In the Middle Ages, the subject was the sacred. We were around this table and we talked about it. There was no other subject. In the modern age, we discussed the issues of intellectuality, of reason. Postmodernity does not have this. We do not have a point in common. Everything is very scattered, so much so that it has an expression of Marx, one of the great philosophers of our times, practically contemporary, which was precisely, he had such a sentence, all that is solid dismantles in the air. Do you know what he meant by that? In fact, Marx is making a great critique of modernity, postmodernity. We could say so. There is nothing that holds more. People no longer have the security guards before. Before you were married to the certainty that you were going to die with that person. I am wrong. I'm not. Get people who lived 60 years ago, their mindset. What was their head? Things are more definitive. We bought a house and there we were buried practically. We died in that house. There was that story. In that street, Mora so-and-so. Here is so. And so. The neighbors knew everything. Because that there it was years and years, and years in the same configuration. It didn't change so much. A family changing town, my God, was a rare thing. It was a difficulty. Not today. Today, solid realities no longer exist. Today we live such an insecurity. There is a Polish sociologist who calls Balma. His last name is Balma. Zygmunt Balma. If you have the opportunity and patience, it's a slightly more complicated book, but it has a book of it that calls Liquid Love, just to show it. People are no longer able to establish lasting ties, and she is in that impasse. She has a need to have someone for a lifetime, but when she begins to realize that the other is wanting for a lifetime, she already scares. I want, but I don't want it that much. I want, but I want it to stay free. It's that old story, right? I want more. It's that old story. The other day I was talking. I can't take this story anymore. The woman is on a base of the string, right? Everyone is very stranded today, right? The ladies stranded throughout this Brazil that is impressive. And then they usually end the same way. They start like this: date, stay, right? It is in that process, it is staying, it is staying, it is staying, until it starts to date. Then one day he speaks like this: look, you are a very special person. You are a very dear person. That is, you don't want a nice person, you don't want a person, right? He wants a bad person then, because it has been all this, and is discarding. What does he want, after all? Then a friend of mine is talking. Look. When I start to say that I'm special and that, already give me cold in my belly. Because you already know it will be discarded, it's true. Now I ask you, how are we going to cure it within us? True. Today everyone is very unstable. Our human relationships are liquid. The Polish sociologist is right. Guys, you try it on your flesh. Relationships are liquid. They are not worth much more. We are discarding ourselves very easily, and this insecurity, it comes to the affective field. It comes to the professional field. It comes to your friendship relationships. Because you do not know how long you have people. You can see. Sometimes. There is that song from Oswaldo Montenegro, which is a stab. Make a list of great friends who you saw more 10 years ago. How many you still see every day? How many you no longer find? And truth? Thinking. What are friends 10 years ago, who are still today? Are few. I'm not being pessimistic. No, I'm being realistic. Increasingly, we are having difficulty establishing deep relationships. I'm going to travel with a friend. That friend. I met on the internet. No, we will meet now. So you see, the facilities. The other day, there was one that married a boy in Portugal. I was going to make the honeymoon, but I was going to meet him there. I'd never seen it. In the interior of Minas Gerais, a person I met, she married. Did everything. She was going to find her boyfriend on the honeymoon because the appalet marriage was already done before she went. Now I ask you, this generates a virtual world? Are we increasingly virtual? That's what we said. We don't write letter anymore. We send email. What is an email? Where is he? It's just like that devil from that computer business, right? There was a serious problem and happened in your system. My God in heaven. What do I, right? Already give you that cold in the belly. So you talk like that. Do you want to send a report? Who will read this report, guys? Has anyone sent it? Have you received an answer from the report? It's all virtual. You got. There was a serious mistake. Do you want to send a report? What a more uncompromising thing. I don't know who will read this report. It's a lie. The virtual world is full of possibilities. But at the same time, it is empty. You have the feeling of that you have many possibilities, but deep down, you are alone. There is MSN. If we abuse, we spend the whole night talking, chatting. I, thank God, no longer call us take the time of us. You can tell you that you have a cheerful friend, right? Those who send with a question and she is jumping on her screen sends an exclamation. 300 exclamations. If you are working, the interrogation: she walks, she goes, she swings, she is doing so. You do not work. The pets, the emotions. That doesn't realize life is virtual. Now I ask you, how much that can all that follow us? I cannot understand. Virtual friendship? I don't know. There may be contacts, but to say that it is not a friend, Friendship is only after we eat a bag of salt together, because otherwise it is liquid. This is not livelihood. It is only after we met that we met, and these very temporary relationships are born of this. My daughter, you're absolutely right, and it's not just you. I believe that today one of the big problems in the world is precisely the lack of security. We no longer have lasting bonds. Our bonds are very temporary, very temperades. And the way we are being family either, it won't last long, because kinship doesn't hold much either. Only obligation many times. The lack of intimacy, the lack of proximity causes the ties to be lost in time. Unfortunately. Now, how are we going to change that? Getting more concrete in our relationships, taking more time to establish bonds, taking care of these bonds so that they last a little more. Do not discard people for few things. And this spirit is within us. Sometimes we are as practical in the relationship with people as we are practical with the papers. No more? We throw it out in the trash. No, we can't do that. If this postmodern spirit is taking over us, we need to change that. We can't keep taking it, doing things that way.